welcome to Hardtalk India. The recent prolonged violence in Manipur was a cruel reminder that although we talk about Kashmir, perhaps India's worst insurgencies lie in the northeast. What lies behind them? Why have we ignored them? And how should the government now seek to resolve them? With me is India's foremost politician from the northeast, the former Speaker of the Lok Sabha and former Cabinet Minister, Purno Sangama. Mr. Sangama, let me start with a general impression. It seems that there's an insurgency in every state in the northeast, in some maybe even 2 and 3. Why is this area so prone to insurgency?
Well, Karan, you're very right. What is worrying us is the mushroom growth of insurgent groups. It's not 2 or 3 in each state, it's much more than that. We have 7 states, and the total number of insurgents as of today is even little over 50 of them. At one point of time, I was tempted to say that the insurgency in the northeast has assumed the status of a small-scale industry. Now, the reasons are many. The reasons are many, and it will be very difficult to analyze all these reasons in this short time. But initially, it was political reasons, the political aspirations of the people. Most of the tribals in the northeast, the hill areas of the northeast, were not even a part of British territory, even during British rule. Our areas were known as excluded area and partially excluded area. The British even allowed the tribals in the northeast to, remain as they were, without even going into their culture and all kind of things. Therefore, people in the northeast have that kind of a pride that we have not even been under the British rule, and therefore when India became independent, then the Nagas didn't want to join India. The Manipuris didn't want to join India. Yeah.
Is it just a question of anti-Indian sentiment, or is in fact the northeast also an area where there are multi-layered levels of divisions within the ethnic tribes, within hills people and other people?
Oh yes, oh yes. It is not a question of being anti-India. I don't think the majority of the people are today anti-India. They very much realize that they are and they have to be part of India. There is no doubt about that. But the reasons for insurgency are not political alone. It has got, as you very rightly said, some sort of a tribal ego. The rivalry between one tribe and the another. The rivalry between the tribals and the local people and the outsiders, the rivalry between the plain people and the hills people. And of late, I think economic reason is the main problem. And we have a lot of educated youth in the northeast, and there is no development and no jobs and no employment.
So today, when in India we talk about Kashmir as the most problematic insurgency, are we in fact making a mistake? Would you say the northeast is a much more grave situation?
Well, as of today, I wouldn't say it is much more grave than what is in Kashmir. I wouldn't say that. Because the situation in the northeast can still be tackled. It can still be solved if we really are serious about it. But if we fail to tackle this situation on time, it can certainly become worse than Kashmir.
Is that then the problem, that whilst Kashmir has full attention from everyone, the northeast is ignored and not even fully understood?
Well, that is what the northeastern people feel about it. And feeling of the northeastern people, or any people, is very important. So that is the feeling. Even today, when the Prime Minister was addressing the nation, he spoke so much about Kashmir, but not a sentence for about Northeast.
Despite the fact that Manipur had blown up all over in June.
Absolutely. Therefore, people really feel that, well, we are not to be counted in this country. That is the feeling, and that is a very, very dangerous feeling. And
let's talk about some of these insurgencies, and let's start with the Naga insurgency, in a sense at the moment fronted by the NSCN. It's often said that this is the mother of all insurgencies. Do you accept that description?
Well, that is generally said in the sense that they are the major group and the most powerful group. They have arms with them, they have trained people with them, and it is a fact that the smaller insurgent groups in other parts of the northeast are being trained by them, are being supplied arms by them, and they are supervising these people, and therefore it is the most important insurgent group in the northeast. There is no doubt about that, and therefore we will have to tackle them. Once we tackle NSCN, perhaps to a great extent you can tackle the other smaller groups.
Let's talk a little about the NSCN. The Naga people often say that before the British colonized them, they were in a sense a free, independent people. Is that a credible assertion?
Yeah, they had that. That is the historical fact. They were, as I said, they were excluded and partially excluded areas, though British presence was very much there. But they were allowed to govern themselves according to their customs, according to their traditions. Therefore, when India became independent, they did not want to join India.
They in fact declared their own independence on the 14th of August 47.
Of course they did. Of course they did. So that is what I say, the historical background, political aspiration is one of the reasons why these insurgencies are there. But of late, there are many other reasons which are contributing to that.
Historically, the Naga insurgency, as spearheaded by the NSCN, has had two strands. On the one hand, they've been struggling for political independence or autonomy. On the other hand, they've been struggling to try and bring all Naga people within one administrative unit. Has the Indian government, during the 40, 50 years that this insurgency has continued, given them any assurance on either strand?
Well, as far as the sovereignty and independence is concerned, there is no question of India government agreeing to such demands. It's not only in Nagaland and elsewhere in the country, there's no question at all. And I think they also understand that India is a very mighty country.
But on the other strand, in terms of bringing Naga people within a unit?
So there is no question of India at any point of time giving them any assurance on that. It doesn't arise at all. Now, as far as the other part of the question is concerned, integration of the Naga inhabited areas in the neighboring states of Nagaland. In 1960, when the Naga People's Convention were negotiating with the government of India, they did claim for those areas, that the areas predominantly inhabited by the Nagas in the neighboring states of Assam, Manipur, or those days there was Assam, only Assam, Manipur was not in existence and Arunachal was not in existence, should be brought under the state of Nagaland, which was going to be created. Government of India, of course, said no, they cannot give any commitment on that. So there is no promise on the part of the government.
So no commitment was given,
no,
but it's a long-standing demand.
But their demand was noted in the agreement.
Now, recently in June, when the NSCN ceasefire 4-year standing was extended, the Indian government agreed to extend it without territorial limits. 6 weeks later, those words were revoked. Today, in fact, there's now, as a result, a fear that the whole edifice of the peace process that's been painstakingly built up with the NSCN could come crumbling down. How badly has this whole thing been handled?
Well, I think this has not been handled properly. You see, I think what Government of India wanted to say was to make a distinction between the extension of ceasefire and the territorial integrity of a particular state. Therefore, after this June agreement, when there was a backlash in Manipur and Manipur protested, the Home Minister and the Prime Minister repeatedly said that this agreement will not affect the territorial integrity of Manipur. So they wanted to make a distinction between extension of ceasefire to other areas where NSCN is operating and the territorial integrity are two separate questions, and we should not mix up about that. That was, I think, the intention of the Government of India, but they failed to make the people understand.
Why did they fail?
Because I think there was no transparency in their discussions, in their agreement. Secondly, they did not take the neighboring states into confidence, because all the chief ministers have complained that how this agreement has been reached without taking us into confidence, everybody. So I think that was the that was the mistake.
Of course, since then, the extension has been revoked. What impression and image has this left of the Government of India as a person or an entity capable of taking tough decisions and standing by them? Has this weakened its image?
It's not a question of weakening or strengthening the government position. What is important is the credibility of the government.
Has that suffered?
Absolutely.
And badly?
And badly.
Right through the Northeast?
Right through the Northeast. You see, the important point is, when the Prime Minister of the country is repeatedly saying that this agreement will not affect the territorial integrity of Manipur, no taker was there. The people of Manipur did not believe even the Prime Minister. Why? Because in the past, so many Prime Ministers, so many Union Ministers have promised so many things for the people of the Northeast, and things were not done, and therefore people are not able
Now,
to believe
there was
them.
a widespread fear
Yeah.
that when the extension was revoked, there would be a Naga backlash. That hasn't happened so far. How do you interpret that?
I think the credit goes to the church leaders and the civil societies in Nagaland. They have acted with restraint, they have acted with maturity, and I would certainly commend their action. I think it's a great thing that they have done. And if the situation and the issues are to be tackled with that kind of maturity, coolness and calmness, I think many things can be sorted out.
So you're saying in a sense that the civil society and the church in Nagaland, perhaps even some of the NSC and cadres, have shown maturity and restraint in a way in which the government didn't show maturity and responsibility.
Well, I think you have said it.
The leadership of the NSCN, Muiva and Isak, are in their late 60s and perhaps even early 70s. Perhaps they have no more than 10 years of active political life ahead of them. Does this mean that in a medium-term perspective, time is on the side of the Indian government? Or is there a fear that when Muiva and Isak die, the Naga insurgency could pass beyond control and therefore beyond negotiation?
You see, the fact is that both Mr. Isaac and Mr. Muiva are willing to talk. And when they are willing to talk, and when they are actually talking, I think they mean that peace should be there in the Northeast. The solution should be found out. And therefore, India, the government of India should take advantage of their willingness to find a political solution to the issue. I don't want to go into the age of the leadership or the second line of leadership, what kind of leadership they have and all. I think these are all immaterial. What is material is that the NSCN leadership, they call it the collective leadership. The fact that they are willing to discuss, they're willing to talk with the government of India, I think it's good enough that we should make a sincere effort.
You're also saying that while this willingness lasts, we have an opportunity.
Absolutely.
If we waste it,
Yeah.
we won't have a willing leadership to talk with any longer.
Perhaps, yes, and therefore it is important.
So time, in a sense, is not on the Indian government's side. The opportunity is there,
Yeah.
but if they waste it,
Yeah.
they could be in worse trouble.
Absolutely right.
Let's come briefly to some of the other insurgencies, because as you said, there are perhaps as many as 50
Yeah.
in just 7 states. Two areas, two insurgencies that make the headlines all the time are the Ulfa insurgency and the Bodo insurgency in Assam. These are relatively newer than the Naga insurgency, but are they less worrying?
No, I won't say that they are less worrying, but there are difference between Ulfa and the Bodo demands. Ulfa basically came out of the Assam movement against the infiltration from the neighboring country, that is the Bangladesh, and to some extent from Nepal. And so they got a movement against foreign nationals, and that's how they started. And of course, Assam Accord was signed, and then some of them were not happy with that, and therefore they went underground. And today they are also asking for sovereignty or something like that. Now, so their demand is separate. The fact is, again, an opportunity for the government of India is that they have of late been giving an indication that even they are now willing to come to the table. They are willing to talk. They have their mouthpiece in Assamese.
And the Bodo militancy?
Bodo militancy has nothing to do with separation, nothing to do with sovereignty. Bodos have been asking for a separate state within Indian Union. They are not for secession from India.
Why is this a problem for the government to grant? Because it sounds, as you make it seem, a very simple proposition.
Actually, you know, firstly, the government of Assam will have to agree to that. And otherwise, you know, government of India cannot take a unilateral decision on that.
Is there also a problem in the fact that the Bodos are very thinly spread and the area where there are majority is not viable?
There are some practical difficulties. You are very right. There are some practical difficulties, you know. The territory that Bodo movement are demanding, if you take the population structure of that area, somehow the Bodos become minority in that particular area. if they go for an area where it is predominantly inhabited by Bodos and they are majority, then perhaps it may not become economically viable. And therefore, I think some problem is there. But I think we will have to talk to them also, and we have to talk to the government of Assam also.
Another area, just like the Ulfa and the Bodo, where populations make a big difference to the nature of the insurgency, is Tripura. I believe in Tripura, the original tribal inhabitants are reduced to 1/6 of the population.
Yes, you are very right. In Tripura was a purely tribal state, and today it is no more. So also Sikkim was a tribal state, which is no more. And therefore, the people in the northeast are very much apprehensive of being outnumbered if the flow of the people from other part of the country or even from within the country are not checked.
This is another factor that underlies the
insurgency. That is another factor of so many insurgent groups are coming up.
How do
and
you
the slogan, you know, the slogan, the very emotional slogan which the regional parties normally give is that we don't want another Tripura. We do not want another Sikkim. We want to protect our identity and we want to protect our population structure.
How then is this identity and this population structure to be protected? Sometimes the government talks about fencing borders and keeping out population migration from Bangladesh. In your eyes, is that a sensible way of going about it?
I don't think, you know, you see, according to me, as far as the Bangladesh question is concerned, I think this issue has to be tackled at the source, which means, so when people are leaving their own country and migrating to another country, I think it is because of absolute, you know, I mean, sheer necessity. They have to do that. Therefore, my formula has been that if you really want to check infiltration from Bangladesh to India, perhaps India government should help the Bangladesh government to develop those areas adjoining our country.
You mean create a cordon sanitaire where we help development?
We help development, give them jobs, contain people where they are by development, by giving them employment, livelihood. Perhaps we can help Bangladesh better, and the money which we are using for fencing could be used for that.
And that would be a better way of using the money.
Absolutely better way. Otherwise, what is that fencing? It is, my village is also there. I also come from a rural area. It is a barbed wire. Anybody can cut it and come inside. I mean, it has no meaning at all.
One needs longer-term, meaningful solutions rather than short-term ones like fencing.
Absolutely.
Now, Mr. Sangama, it's been widely reported in the papers that recently the Prime Minister called upon you and offered you a job as a sort of principal negotiator with all the northeastern insurgencies in mind. What was the nature of the job that he was outlining?
I really do not know. Well, the Prime Minister did call me, and my President, Mr. Sarad Pawar. So we went to see him, and their Prime Minister said that most of the leaders from the Northeast are suggesting, we are suggesting my name to be chief negotiator or. So I told the Prime Minister that it's an extremely difficult job and I wouldn't be able to promise any good results. So the Prime Minister said, well, he understood that, but there's nothing wrong in trying. And therefore I did mention to him that, well, if you so desire, I don't mind trying it.
I believe you laid down 2 conditions, however. What were those?
Well, I said that, not condition as such, but I said that if you have to solve the problem of insurgency in the Northeast by merely talking to one group, we won't be able to get solutions.
Talk to all of them?
Talk to all of them, or most of them, at least the most important ones.
But were you envisaging talking to them all together or individually?
Individually, separately. No, it is no. I don't think it is practicable to call all of them and talk. I think we will have to negotiate with them separately, but with the major groups.
And you would have been the chief interlocutor, although perhaps you wouldn't have been able to talk to all the insurgencies yourself personally.
Well, it is impossible for one person to talk to everybody, but many more people will have to be involved in that.
But all
under the overall
reporting
supervision. But what I tried to impress the Prime Minister on that day was that it is not merely talking to them and getting agreement or signing an accord that the problem can be solved permanently. I do not believe in that. You see, What can solve the problem permanently is the development.
This was the second condition in a
Yes,
sense.
development is the only way to solve the problem in the long run.
Peace through development.
Peace to development. The government of India's stand is peace for development, which means they want peace first and then they will start development. Our contention is no. You start development work, peace will automatically follow. So development for peace is our slogan. Peace for development is a slogan of the government of India. I said it has to be development. Unless you generate employment, unless you give, livelihood to the people and dignified life to the people, it is impossible for us to stop our young people to going to and joining this insurgency.
Mr. Sangama, several prime ministers have frequently spoken of the need for development. This present prime minister created a 10,000 crore package when he visited the Northeast. What happens to these promises for development? Why don't they get realized?
We are trying to locate where they are.
Mean they get forgotten about?
I think so.
Are they even
Well,
meant sincerely?
firstly, the so-called 10,000 crores package is nothing new package. What they have done cleverly is, that some of the projects which are going on or which are supposed to come up, and some of the departments were going to expand in that area, they calculated and all this, and then they said this is a package. I don't think it is a package.
So it's neither new, and perhaps it's not even sincerely meant when these packages are offered. They're political promises, no more.
You see, the then Prime Minister, Mr. Deve Gowda, announced that every department and the ministry of the government of India will have to earmark 10% of its budget, non-planned budget, planned budget, for Northeast.
But it never happened.
No, it does not happen.
Tell me something, when you see this, when people in the Northeast hear these promises repeatedly being made and not realized, when they bear in mind that people in the mainland don't understand the nature of the problem, they don't even visit the Northeast, do you feel, as a Northeasterner, that you're not understood, that perhaps there's discrimination, maybe even a certain form of racism that you face?
You see, the people of Northeast are quite, they are maybe backward economically. They are very forward educationally. They know India, they know the world. Problem is the rest of India doesn't know Northeast. You will not believe when I came first time with so much of enthusiasm to the Parliament of India in 1977 that I have a chance now to do something for the Northeast, for my own state. When I sought my appointment with the Home Minister, I went to see him. And I talked about infiltration, I talked about cattle lifting, I talked about border problems. And the Home Minister asked me, Mr. Sangma, please let me know whether your Meghalaya is in the Chinese border or in Burmese border.
And it's neither.
And it's neither. Now, if the Home Minister of this country didn't know the geographical location of the state, what else you can expect?
So there is real ignorance that
Absolute
faces
ignorance
the
is
Northeast.
there. Absolute ignorance is there,
And
I do not know how many people even today will be able to tell whether Mr. Sangma comes from Mizoram or Manipur or Meghalaya or Arunachal Pradesh. I think they're still confused. I have been here for more than 20 years.
Mr. Sangma, if this attitude doesn't change and if meaningful steps are not taken to resolve the problem in the Northeast, where can we end up in 10, 15 years?
Things will be serious, and therefore we have to act. It is wrong to say that, as right from the very beginning I said, that people of Northeast want peace. One, people of Northeast want to be with India. If somebody is making anti-India statement, it is just negligible number of
But
people.
if the situation isn't
But
tackled,
government of India will have to do a lot to bring these people into the national mainstream, in the sense that the emotional integration will have to take place. It is not taking place, you see.
So
at one point of time, we thought that in spite of the fact that we have very good educational institutions in the Northeast, in order to broaden the outlook of our children, let us send them out. Let them go to Delhi, let them go to Bangalore, let them go to other parts of India, and let them mix with the people in the rest of the country, and then, broaden their outlook.
but that hasn't worked.
It didn't work, because the moment they come here, They feel that they are not even treated as Indians.
Mr. Sangama,
you
are
are
you
a foreigner,
saying-
you're a Chinese, you're a, so many things.
You're saying that the Northeast, in a sense, is a time bomb. It can be diffused, but if it's not diffused, it could explode.
Absolutely.
There, I'm afraid, we have to leave it. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for explaining this difficult and tricky situation to us.